Hansol stood at the window of the space station, looking at the beautiful purple planet below. His hand touched the cold glass as he thought about how far he had come from his small classroom in Seoul. The space station was huge, like a giant silver ring floating in space. Thousands of alien ships came and went, bringing contestants for the big mathematics competition. "Teacher Hansol," a soft voice called from behind him. "It's almost time for the opening ceremony." He turned to see Yuna, Earth's young diplomatic helper, standing in the doorway. She wore the blue and white uniform of Earth's space program, with her long black hair neatly tied back. Her smile was friendly, but Hansol could see she was nervous too. "Thank you, Yuna," he said, straightening his simple black suit. In his pocket, he felt the familiar shape of his favorite pencil and a small notepad. These simple tools had been his faithful companions throughout his teaching career. Now they would help him represent all of humanity. They walked through the wide hallways of the Galactic Mathematics Institute. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around them. Some floated in the air, others walked on many legs, and a few rolled like balls. Hansol saw that most of them carried small devices that glowed with different colors, their personal supercomputers. "Remember," Eunice said as they walked, "Earth just joined the Galactic Federation 3 months ago. This is the first time they've invited a human to compete. Many aliens think we're too." She paused, looking for a simple word: basic. Hansol nodded. He understood. Earth was like a small country school competing against big city universities, but that didn't worry him. He had been teaching mathematics to high school students for 15 years, and he knew that sometimes the simplest way was the best way. They entered a massive room shaped like a bowl. Thousands of seats rose up from the center, filled with aliens of every color and type. The ceiling was so high that small flying vehicles moved around up there, carrying camera crews that would show the competition across the galaxy. At the center of the room was a large stage. 25 desks were arranged in a circle, each with a different shape to match the different types of aliens who would use them. Hansol saw his desk, a simple human-sized chair and table that looked very plain next to the floating platforms and glowing containers around it. "All contestants, please take your places," a voice announced in perfect Earth English, then repeated the message in 20 other languages. "Good luck," Yuna whispered, squeezing his arm before heading to the diplomatic section. Hansol walked to his desk, feeling the eyes of thousands of aliens on him. He sat down and took out his pencil and notepad. Around him, other contestants were setting up their supercomputers. Lights flashed, holograms appeared, and quiet humming filled the air. To his right was Professor Cax, the defending champion. The alien looked like a tall blue crystal with many small arms. Each arm held a different part of his quantum computer. Professor Cax turned slightly, and Hansol saw what looked like amusement in the alien's glowing center. "Human competitor," Cax said in a musical voice, "I believe there has been a mistake. The testing equipment hasn't been delivered to your station." "No mistake," Hansol replied with a small smile. "This is my equipment." He held up his pencil. A sound like tinkling crystals came from Cax. Alien laughter. "Fascinating. You intend to compete with primitive marking tools. The first round alone involves 12-dimensional calculus." Before Hansol could answer, a deep voice boomed through the room. "Welcome to the 547th Annual Galactic Speed Mathematics Championship." Director Rox floated onto the stage. The alien looked like a cloud of purple smoke wearing a formal white robe. "This year, we are honored to welcome our newest member species to the competition, humanity, represented by Teacher Hansol of Earth." A polite murmur went through the crowd. Hansol stood and bowed slightly, then sat back down. He noticed many aliens whispering and pointing at his pencil and paper. As always, Director Rox continued, "Our competition will test speed, accuracy, and understanding of universal mathematical principles. Each round will present progressively more complex problems. Contestants may use any computing method they prefer, but answers must be transmitted to the central system within the time limit. Hansol looked at the small screen built into his desk. This would be where the problems appeared, and where he needed to input his answers. At least this part was digital. He wouldn't have to show his work to a room full of aliens. The first round will begin in 10 minutes. Director Rox announced. Contestants, prepare your systems. Around him, aliens began running diagnostic checks on their computers. Lights flashed faster, holograms grew bigger, and the humming got louder. Hansol simply made sure his pencil was sharp and opened his notepad to a fresh page. A small alien child in the audience pointed at him and asked its parent something. The parent answered, and both made a sound that Hansol guessed was laughter. He didn't mind. In his years of teaching, he had learned that laughter often came before learning. He thought back to his classroom in Seoul, where he had taught countless students that mathematics wasn't just about getting the right answer. It was about understanding the path to that answer. His students had sometimes laughed when he refused to let them use calculators for basic problems. But they always thanked him later when they really understood the mathematics, not just the buttons to push. 3 minutes to first round, the announcement came. Hansol took a deep breath and rolled his shoulders to relax them. Next to him, Professor Cax was still making adjustments to his quantum computer. The alien's crystal body was now glowing with many colors, and Hansol could see complex equations floating in the air around him. I hope your marking tool is functioning at peak efficiency, Cax said, his voice containing that musical laugh again. The first round is usually quite challenging for new contestants. No shame in withdrawing early. Thank you for your concern, Hansol replied politely. But I think I will stay. Sometimes the old ways still work best. Fascinating perspective, Cax said. Though I calculate a 99.98% probability that you will not complete even the first problem within the time limit, the processing power required is simply beyond organic computing capabilities. Hansol smiled again. We will see. 1 minute to first round. The room grew quiet. The humming of computers became a soft background noise. Hansol gripped his pencil lightly, the way he had done thousands of times before. In his mind, he wasn't in a giant alien arena. He was just in his classroom, ready to solve another interesting problem. Contestants ready. Director Rox called out. Round 1 begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The screen on Hansol's desk lit up with the first problem. As promised, it involved 12-dimensional calculus. The equation filled his screen, full of symbols that would have looked impossible to most humans. But to Hansol, they were like old friends. He began to write in his notepad, his pencil moving steadily across the paper. Around him, computers whirred to life. Holograms filled the air with dancing numbers and shapes. But Hansol stayed focused on his paper, his mind breaking down the complex problem into simpler parts, just as he had taught his students to do. He could hear surprised murmurs from the audience as they watched him work with just his pencil and paper. Some were probably wondering if he even understood the problem. Others might have thought he was just pretending to work while accepting his inevitable failure. But Hansol knew what he was doing. In his mind, the 12 dimensions became simpler shapes. He saw patterns that computers might take millions of calculations to find. His pencil moved faster as the solution became clear. Next to him, Professor Cax's crystal body was flashing with rapid calculations. The alien's many arms moved quickly between different parts of his quantum computer. Hansol could hear the machine working harder as it processed the complex mathematics. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Some contestants were already entering their answers, their supercomputers having crunched through the calculations. Hansol kept writing, each line of his work leading naturally to the next. Remarkable, he heard Professor Cax mutter. The human is still attempting to solve the problem. Hansol smiled to himself as he wrote the final line of his solution. He checked his work quickly, then began entering the answer into his screen. Just as he finished, the announcement came. Time limit reached. Round 1 is complete. He sat back and took a deep breath. Around him, aliens were running diagnostics on their computers or discussing the problem with their neighbors. Professor Cax turned to him again. "You actually completed the problem?" the alien asked, surprise clear in his musical voice. "Yes," Hansol replied. "It was an interesting one. The nested derivatives created a beautiful pattern." Before Cax could respond, Director Rox's voice filled the room again. "Round 1 results are being verified. Please stand by." The main hologram in the center of the stage lit up with a list of contestants and their results. Hansol saw his name among them. And then, a gasp went through the crowd. Hansol's solution was marked correct, and his time was in the top 10. "Impossible," he heard someone say behind him. The human used no quantum processing at all. Professor Cax's crystal body flickered with what might have been surprise. "How did you? Without a computer? The processing requirements alone." "I didn't process anything," Hansol explained quietly. "I just solved the problem. Sometimes, understanding is faster than computing." The room buzzed with excited conversation. Director Rox had to call for quiet several times before announcing the start of round 2. As Hansol prepared for the next problem, he noticed that more aliens were watching him now. Some had even pulled out devices to record his work. He smiled to himself as he sharpened his pencil again. He thought of his students back in Seoul and how he always told them that mathematics was a language that everyone in the universe could speak. Now he was proving that humans could speak it just as well as anyone else, even without supercomputers. The next problem appeared on his screen, and Hansol began to write. He had a feeling this was going to be a very interesting competition. The second round of the competition began with a problem that made several alien competitors gasp. Hansol looked at his screen and saw an equation about quantum probability in a 15-dimensional space. He smiled slightly. This was the kind of problem that looked scary at first, but became simple once you found the right approach. Around him, the alien computers hummed louder than before. The air filled with more holograms as the machines worked harder to solve the complex mathematics. Professor Cax's crystal body was glowing brighter, all his arms moving quickly across his quantum computer's controls. Hansol started writing in his notepad. His pencil moved steadily as he broke down the big problem into smaller parts. He remembered teaching his students about this, how every big problem was just many small problems working together. "Contestant in Section 4, please adjust your power output," Director Rox announced. "You're causing interference with nearby systems." Hansol looked up to see an alien that looked like a floating cloud of green gas. Its computer was making angry sparking noises. The alien adjusted something, and the sparking stopped. But now its holograms looked dimmer than before. More announcements followed as other aliens had trouble with their computers. The problems were getting harder, and the machines were working at their limits. But Hansol kept writing, his pencil never stopping. He didn't need to worry about power outputs or system interference. "Fascinating approach," a quiet voice said from his left. Hansol turned to see a new alien watching him work. This one looked like a tall plant with eyes on its leaves. "You're using the gradient descent method, but on paper?" "Yes," Hansol replied, still writing. "It's faster this way. No need to check every possible answer when you can see which way the solution is flowing." The plant alien made a rustling sound that might have been surprise. "But how can you see the flow in 15 dimensions without a visual interface?" Hansol thought about how to explain it simply. "Think of it like water running down a hill," he said. "You don't need to measure every point on the hill to know which way is down. You can feel it. Feel mathematics." Professor Cax joined the conversation, his crystal body flickering with interest. "That's not possible. Mathematics is pure logic, not emotion." "Not emotion," Hansol corrected gently. "Intuition. Understanding. Like how you know your friend's voice without measuring the sound waves." Before they could discuss more, a loud buzz came from another contestant station, An alien with 6 eyes and silver skin was hitting its computer in frustration. Processing overload. It called out, "Request permission to restart system." "Granted," Director Rox replied. "Timer will not stop for technical difficulties." More buzzing sounds filled the room as other computers started having problems. The equations were getting more complex with each passing minute, and the machines were struggling to keep up. But Hansol's pencil kept moving steadily across his paper. He thought about his old classroom again. He had always told his students that computers were tools, not answers. "A computer can tell you that 2 + 2 = 4, he would say, "but it can't tell you why. Understanding the why is what makes you good at mathematics." Time morning. Director Rox announced. 5 minutes remaining in round 2. The humming of computers grew even louder. Some aliens were now using multiple computers at once, trying to split up the calculations. Professor Cax's crystal body was glowing so bright that it was hard to look at directly. Hansol was on his last page of calculations. The solution was almost clear now. He could see how the 15 dimensions folded together, creating a pattern that was complex but beautiful. Like a flower with many petals, each one perfect on its own, but even more beautiful as part of the whole. 2 minutes remaining. The plant alien was still watching him work. "You're not even using a calculator," it said, sounding amazed. "How do you handle the complex numbers?" "Complex numbers are just pairs of simple numbers dancing together," Hansol replied, writing down his final answer. "Once you learn the dance steps, it's easy to follow the music." Music? Dance? These are mathematics problems, not art. Professor Cax protested, but his voice held more curiosity than criticism now. Hansol began entering his solution into the screen. "Mathematics is both science and art," he said. "That's why it's universal. Every species can understand it, but each one sees its beauty in a different way." Time complete. Director Rox announced. Round 2 is now closed. The room filled with sounds of relief and frustration from various competitors. 3 more aliens had to restart their computers, and one's hologram system had completely failed. But Hansol sat quietly, feeling satisfied with his work. The main hologram lit up with the results. Another gasp went through the crowd, louder than before. Hansol's solution was not only correct, it was the fastest one submitted. "This cannot be correct," someone said loudly. "The human must be cheating. There must be a hidden computer somewhere." Director Rox floated over to Hansol's desk. The alien's purple smoke form swirled with what might have been curiosity. "Teacher Hansol, would you explain your method to the audience?" Hansol stood up and walked to the center of the stage. The cameras floated closer, broadcasting his explanation across the galaxy. He held up his notepad. "I solved it like this," he began, pointing to his first line of calculations. "The problem looks difficult because we're trying to see all 15 dimensions at once. But if you look at them 3 at a time, patterns start to appear." He explained step by step, using simple words and clear examples. He showed how he had found shortcuts through the mathematics, ways that only human intuition could see. The alien audience watched in silence, their various eyes and sensors all fixed on his simple notepad. "And that's why the answer had to be this value," he finished. "The mathematics told a story, and I just had to listen to understand it." The room was quiet for a moment. Then the plant alien started making a soft, rustling sound, applause in its own way. Others joined in, each species showing appreciation in their own manner. Professor Cax's crystal body glowed with soft, warm colors. "Most illuminating," Director Rox said. "It seems we have underestimated the power of organic computing methods. But now, let us prepare for round 3. Contestants, there will be a 15-minute break for system maintenance and pencil sharpening." This caused a wave of laughter through the room. Hansol returned to his desk, where Yuna was waiting with a bottle of water. "You're amazing," she whispered. "Everyone's talking about your methods. Some aliens are already asking if they can send students to Earth to learn our mathematical techniques. Hansol took a sip of water. Mathematics is mathematics, he said simply. The only difference is how we approach it. Sometimes the simple way is the best way. As he prepared for the next round, he noticed something interesting. Several aliens had put away their hologram displays. A few were even taking out what looked like writing tools of their own. Professor Cax had dimmed his quantum computer's power and was watching Hansol with obvious interest. "Teacher," the crystal alien said, using Hansol's title for the first time, "would you perhaps explain more about this intuition method during the break?" Hansol smiled. He was a teacher at heart, and nothing made him happier than sharing knowledge. As aliens gathered around his desk, he began to explain, just as he had done countless times in his classroom back on Earth. But now his classroom had become much bigger, and his students were from across the galaxy. Yet the basics of teaching remained the same: show, explain, and help others understand. As he talked, he could see understanding beginning to glow in their various eyes and sensors. The competition was far from over, and the hardest problems were still to come. But Hansol felt more confident than ever. He wasn't just competing anymore. He was teaching the galaxy that sometimes the oldest methods were still the best ones. Round 3 began with a sound that Hansol had never heard before, the hum of every alien computer running at full power at the same time. The problem on his screen was the hardest yet. It dealt with hyperspatial geometry, the kind of mathematics used to plan faster-than-light travel between stars. Hansol took a deep breath and looked at his notepad. He had used 3 pages in the first round, 5 in the second. For this problem, he turned to a fresh page and gripped his pencil a little tighter. The room was so quiet that he could hear his pencil scratching on the paper. Professor Cax's crystal body was glowing with every color of the rainbow as his quantum computer worked on the problem. The plant alien to Hansol's left had added a second computer to help with calculations. All around the room, holograms danced with complex equations. "Warning," Director Rox announced. "Power usage is approaching safety limits. Please adjust your systems accordingly." But the aliens couldn't lower their power. The problem was too complex. Hansol watched as more and more computers began to struggle. The green gas alien's machine started making the angry sparking sounds again. The silver-skinned alien with 6 eyes was hitting its computer repeatedly, trying to make it work faster. Hansol kept writing. In his mind, he saw the hyperspatial geometry like a giant puzzle. Each piece had its own shape, but they all fit together in a pattern. The trick was finding where the pattern started. "System failure," someone shouted. One of the alien computers had shut down completely, its holograms disappearing with a sad little pop. The alien contestant looked around in panic, their 8 tentacles waving in distress. More failures followed. The complex calculations were too much for even the most advanced computers. The room filled with the sounds of machines shutting down or restarting. But through it all, Hansol's pencil kept moving steadily across his paper. Yuna appeared at his side, bringing him another bottle of water. "Half the computers have crashed," she whispered. "Even the ones still working are having trouble, but everyone's watching you. You're giving them hope that there might be another way." Hansol nodded thanks for the water, but kept working. He was deep in the problem now, seeing how the hyperspace mathematics created beautiful shapes in his mind. It reminded him of teaching geometry to his students, showing them how to see the beauty in shapes and angles. "Contestant Cax," Director Rox called out, "your system is exceeding safe power limits." Professor Cax's crystal body was now glowing so bright it hurt to look at him. "Cannot reduce power," he replied, his musical voice strained. "Calculations too complex. Must maintain processing speed." Hansol looked up from his work. "Professor," he said quietly, "sometimes going slower is actually faster." "That makes no logical sense," Cax replied, but his glow dimmed slightly. "How can slower be faster?" "When you're lost," Hansol explained, still writing. Running faster doesn't help you find the right path. Sometimes you need to stop and look around. The plant alien made an interested rustling sound. The human speaks truth. I have reduced my processing speed and found a more efficient calculation path. More aliens began adjusting their computers, trying to find a balance between speed and stability. But it was too late for some. Another computer crashed with a loud bang, making everyone jump. Smoke rose from its hologram projectors. Time warning. Director Rox announced. 15 minutes remaining. Hansol was on his 7th page now. The problem was like a maze, but he could see the way through. Each line of calculation led to the next, like following a trail of footprints. He didn't need to check every possible path. He could see which way the mathematics wanted to go. Professor Cax's quantum computer made a high-pitched whining sound. No, the crystal alien said. No, no, no. System is not responding. Hansol looked up to see Cax's computer starting to shut down. The alien's crystal body flickered with panic as his holograms began to fade. Here, Hansol said, tearing a blank page from his notepad and holding it out. Try this. Cax stared at the paper for a moment, then reached out with one trembling arm to take it. But how? What do I? Look at the problem again, Hansol said gently. But this time, don't try to solve it all at once. Find the pattern first. See where the mathematics wants to go. Around the room, more aliens were watching this exchange. Some had already given up on their computers and were watching Hansol work with open curiosity. The plant alien had produced something like a leaf to write on, copying Hansol's method. 10 minutes remaining, came the announcement. Hansol was getting close to the answer now. The hyperspatial geometry had revealed its secrets to him, showing how the different dimensions folded together like origami. The Japanese paper folding art he sometimes used to teach spatial relationships to his students. Professor Cax was still staring at his piece of paper. I think I see something, he said suddenly. The pattern. It's like a crystal growing. Each part follows the same rules. Yes, Hansol said, smiling. That's it exactly. You're seeing it with your own understanding now, not just letting the computer see it for you. More paper was passed around. Aliens who had never held writing tools before were trying to copy Hansol's methods. Some were better at it than others. The gas alien had trouble holding a pencil with its misty tentacles, but they were all trying. 5 minutes remaining. Hansol wrote his final calculation and checked his work quickly. The answer felt right. It had the same elegant simplicity he always looked for in mathematics. He began entering it into his screen. Next to him, Professor Cax had filled his paper with crystal-shaped diagrams and neat rows of numbers. The alien's glow had changed to a soft, steady blue. I understand now, he said quietly. The computer was making it more complex by trying to be perfect. Sometimes understanding is better than precision. Time complete, Director Rox announced. Round 3 is now closed. The main hologram lit up with the results. Only 8 contestants had managed to submit answers. Of those 8, only 3 were correct. Hansol's was one of them, and once again, his time was the fastest. The room erupted in excited discussion. Aliens were comparing notes, actual written notes, many for the first time in their lives. The plant alien was showing others how it had adapted Hansol's method to work with its leaf writing technique. Even the gas alien had found a way to create misty numbers in the air, copying the way Hansol organized his calculations. Director Rox floated to the center of the stage. We will take a 30-minute break before the final round, the alien announced. Contestants may use this time to reconsider their preferred calculation methods. Hansol stood up to stretch his writing hand. Yuna appeared with more water and a proud smile. You're not just winning the competition, she said. You're teaching the galaxy a new way to think about mathematics. Not new, Hansol corrected her. Very, very old. We just remembered to keep using it. As he looked around the room, he saw something that made him smile. Professor Cax had completely turned off his quantum computer. The crystal alien was practicing writing numbers on a fresh piece of paper, his glow shifting to match each digit as he wrote it. The final round would be the hardest yet, but Hansol wasn't worried. He had shown the aliens that technology wasn't always the answer. Sometimes the best tool was the simplest one, and the best computer was the one everyone was born with, their own mind. He sharpened his pencil and got ready for the last challenge. Around him, aliens were doing the same with their new writing tools, each adapted to their own form. The room no longer hummed with computer noise. Instead, there was the quiet sound of many different kinds of writing tools moving across many different kinds of surfaces. Hansol smiled. It sounded just like his classroom back home. The final round of the Galactic Mathematics Championship was about to begin. The room felt different now. Instead of the loud hum of computers, there was a quiet feeling of excitement. Many aliens had turned off their machines completely. They had paper, leaves, crystal sheets, and other writing surfaces ready. Director Rox floated to the center of the stage. The alien's purple smoke form seemed to swirl with extra energy. Contestants, this final challenge is unlike any we have given before. It is a problem that our best computers have failed to solve. We believe it may be impossible. Hansol sat up straighter in his chair. In his 15 years of teaching, he had learned that nothing was impossible in mathematics. Some things were just waiting for someone to understand them in a new way. The problem appeared on their screens. For a moment, the room was completely silent. Then gasps and confused sounds came from every direction. Even Professor Cax's crystal body flickered with surprise. The equation covered the entire screen. It was about how space itself bent and moved. It asked them to find a way to predict how 20 different dimensions would fold together when they were squeezed into a single point of spacetime. Our most advanced quantum computers have tried to solve this for 3 years. Director Rox said. None have succeeded. You have 1 hour to attempt a solution. Hansol looked at the problem carefully. It was like looking at a giant knot of string, all tangled together. But every knot could be untied if you found the right end to pull. He started writing on a fresh page. Around him, other contestants were also writing. Some still used their computers to help with basic calculations, but most were trying to copy Hansol's method of breaking big problems into smaller ones. Professor Cax had filled 3 crystal sheets with neat rows of numbers and symbols. The plant alien was growing new leaves just to have more writing space. Even the gas alien had found a way to make its misty numbers stay in the air long enough to read them. 20 minutes passed. Some aliens gave up, saying the problem was too hard. Others kept trying, their writing tools moving quickly as they searched for an answer. Hansol kept working steadily, filling page after page with careful calculations. Then he saw something interesting. He stopped writing and looked at his work so far. Could it be that simple? He thought about what he always told his students. Sometimes the hardest part of solving a problem is believing that you can solve it. He started a new page, writing faster now. He could see the pattern. It was like watching a flower bloom in his mind. Each petal was a different dimension, but they all grew from the same center. Teacher, Professor Cax whispered, "You've found something, haven't you? I can see it in your movements." Hansol nodded slowly, still writing. "Look at your crystal sheets," he said quietly. "Don't try to solve the whole problem. Look for the pattern that repeats." The crystal alien studied his work for a moment. Then his glow changed to a bright yellow. "Oh, like the way crystals grow. Each new layer follows the same rules as the one before." "Exactly," Hansol said, smiling. "Nature uses the same patterns over and over. Even in 20 dimensions, the mathematics follows natural rules." Word spread around the room. More aliens came to look at Hansol's work. He showed them how to find the patterns, how to see the simple rules hiding inside the complex problem. Soon, many contestants were writing again with new energy. 15 minutes remaining, Director Rox announced. Hansol was close to the answer now. The 20 dimensions weren't fighting each other like everyone thought. They were working together, each one helping the others fold into place. It was like watching a master origami artist fold paper. Every crease had a purpose. Every fold made the next one possible. He wrote the final equation and checked his work carefully. The answer was beautiful in its simplicity. All those complex calculations led to an elegant solution that could be written in 3 lines. 5 minutes remaining. Hansol began entering his answer into the screen. Around him, other contestants were still working hard. Professor Cax had covered 5 crystal sheets with calculations. The plant alien's leaves were full of equations. The gas alien's misty numbers filled the air around its desk. Time complete. Director Rox announced. Final round is now closed. The main hologram lit up, but this time it didn't show a list of results. Instead, it showed Hansol's solution, floating in the air for everyone to see. The room was completely quiet. Director Rox floated closer to Hansol's desk. Teacher Hansol, the alien said, would you please explain your solution to us? Hansol walked to the center of the stage. He held up his notepad, showing his work. The problem looked impossible, because we were trying to force the dimensions to fit together, he began. But they already knew how to fit. We just had to listen to what the mathematics was telling us. He explained how he found the pattern, how each dimension naturally folded into the next one. He showed how the same simple rules worked over and over, creating a beautiful dance of numbers and space. And that's why the answer is so short, he finished. The 20 dimensions weren't fighting each other. They were helping each other, just like all of us here today, learning from each other. The room was silent for a moment. Then Professor Cax began to glow with all the colors of the rainbow. A crystal alien's standing ovation. The plant alien's leaves rustled in applause. The gas alien swirled in happy circles. Soon the whole room was filled with alien applause of every kind. Director Rox raised all 4 of his misty arms for quiet. Teacher Hansol, the alien announced, you have not only won the championship, you have solved a problem that has puzzled our best minds for years. And more importantly, you have taught us all something valuable. The alien turned to face the audience. We thought our advanced technology made us superior, but today, a human with a pencil and paper showed us that understanding is more powerful than any computer. From this day forward, the Galactic Mathematics Championship will have 2 divisions, one for computer solutions and one for natural solutions. Yuna rushed onto the stage to hug Hansol. You did it, she said happily. You showed the whole galaxy what humans can do. But Hansol was looking at something else. All around the room, aliens were still writing, still practicing their new skills. Professor Cax was teaching a group of younger aliens how to use crystal sheets for calculations. The plant alien was showing others how to grow mathematical leaves. No, Hansol said softly. I showed them what they could already do. They just needed to remember how to think for themselves. Later, as Hansol packed up his notepad and pencil, Professor Cax approached him. The crystal alien's glow was soft and friendly now. Teacher, Cax said, would you consider visiting our mathematics academy? We have much to learn from Earth's methods. Hansol smiled. I would be honored, he said. And maybe your people can teach us some things too. After all, mathematics is about sharing knowledge, not keeping it to ourselves. As he left the competition hall, Hansol thought about his classroom back in Seoul. He couldn't wait to tell his students about his adventure. But more than that, he couldn't wait to show them how the same mathematics they studied every day had helped build a bridge between Earth and the stars. He looked down at his pencil, worn down from all the calculations. Such a simple tool, but it had helped him teach the galaxy that the most powerful computer wasn't made of crystals or energy or quantum circuits. It was the one everyone had inside their own mind, just waiting to be used. The next day, as Hansol's ship prepared to return to Earth, he saw something that made him smile. Through the window of the space station, he could see aliens of all kinds sitting together, writing on various surfaces, sharing mathematical ideas without any computers in sight. Sometimes, he thought, the best way to move forward was to remember what we knew all along. And sometimes, a simple pencil could write the future better than any supercomputer could calculate it.